In the flourishing land of Uduma, there ruled a king named Obinze. He was a man of immense power and influence, feared by many and respected by few. King Obinze was known for his reckless ways, especially when it came to women. His desire for conquest extended beyond the battlefield and into the chambers of every woman in the village. His harem was filled with wives, concubines, and even the wives of his own sons. Yet his thirst was never quenched. The village of Uduma was a quiet place, surrounded by dense forests and fertile lands that provided for its people. The villagers were simple folk, living off the land and taking pride in their traditions. But under the shadow of King Obinze's rule, fear had taken root in their hearts. Women lived in constant dread of catching the king's eye, for once he desired a woman, there was no escaping his grasp. Almost every woman in the village had borne the king's child, and the village was filled with whispers of his insatiable appetite. However, there was one maiden who remained untouched by the king's advances. Ezinne. Ezinne was a strikingly beautiful maiden, with skin the color of rich mahogany and eyes that sparkled like the stars on a clear night. She moved with the grace of a dancer, her long hair cascading down her back like a waterfall. But Ezinne's beauty was not her only strength. She was also known for her intelligence, wit, and a quiet defiance that set her apart from the other women in the village. Despite her beauty, King Obinze had never dared to lay a hand on Ezinne. The reason for this was a lie her parents had concocted years ago, a lie that had protected their daughter from the king's predatory gaze. When Ezinne was born, her parents, fearing what her beauty might one day bring, spread a rumor that she was cursed. They claimed that any man who dared to touch her would be struck down by the gods, doomed to a life of misery and despair. The curse was said to be so powerful that even the king himself was not immune. The rumor spread like wildfire through the village, and soon everyone knew of Ezinne's supposed curse. The villagers, who were deeply superstitious, believed the tale without question. Even King Obinze, who was not easily swayed by such things, found himself hesitating whenever he thought of Ezinne. The fear of the curse, coupled with the respect he still held for the gods, kept him at bay. But as time passed, the king's desire for Ezinne grew stronger. The more he tried to ignore her, the more obsessed he became. Her beauty haunted his dreams, and the thought of her being untouchable drove him to the brink of madness. He became consumed by the idea of lifting the curse, determined to make Ezinne his, no matter the cost. One evening, as the sun set over the village, casting long shadows across the land, King Obinze summoned his most trusted advisor, a man named Chikwe. Chikwe was a wise old man, known for his knowledge of the ancient ways and his deep understanding of the spiritual world. Chikwe, the king began, his voice heavy with frustration. I cannot stop thinking about her, Ezinne. The curse that surrounds her, it torments me. I must find a way to lift it. Chikwe stroked his long white beard thoughtfully. My king, the curse on Ezinne is powerful. It is said to be the work of the gods themselves. To tamper with it would be dangerous. I do not care about the danger, Obinze snapped, his eyes blazing with determination. I am the king of Uduma. I will not be thwarted by some ancient curse. You will find a way to break it, or I will find someone who can. Chikwe sighed, knowing that there was no reasoning with the king when he was in such a state. Very well, my king. I will do what I can. But I must warn you, some things are best left untouched. Obinze waved his hand dismissively. Just do it, Chikwe. I will not rest until Ezinne is mine. Chikwe left the king's presence, his heart heavy with the knowledge that no good could come from this. He began to search for a way to lift the curse, consulting with other wise men, seeking out ancient texts, and even making offerings to the gods. But no matter what he tried, the curse remained unbreakable. Ezinne's protection, it seemed, was absolute. Meanwhile, Ezinne continued to live her life in peace, unaware of the king's growing obsession with her. She spent her days tending to her family's small farm, helping her mother with the chores and enjoying the simple pleasures of village life. She had heard the rumors about the king's advances on other women, but she had always felt safe knowing that the curse would protect her. That was until one day, when a stranger arrived in the village. Ekene was a wealthy merchant from the city, a man of great charm and sophistication. He had traveled far and wide, trading goods and amassing a fortune that made him one of the richest men in the land. But despite his wealth, Ekene was a humble man with a kind heart and a generous spirit. He had come to Uduma in search of rare spices that were said to grow in the region. But when he saw Ezinne, he knew that his journey had led him to something far more precious. Ekene was instantly captivated by Ezinne's beauty, but it was her strength of character that truly won his heart. He admired her independence, her intelligence, and the quiet confidence with which she carried herself. Over time, he began to court her, showering her with gifts and treating her with the respect that she deserved. Ezinne, who had never met a man like Ekene, found herself drawn to him as well. His kindness and sincerity touched her deeply, and she began to open her heart to him. For the first time, she allowed herself to dream of a future with someone who truly loved and respected her. But their blossoming romance did not go unnoticed. King Obinze, who had kept a watchful eye on Ezinne from afar, soon learned of Ekene's interest in her. His jealousy fled, and he was consumed by a rage that he had never felt before. The thought of another man, especially one as wealthy and powerful as Ekene, taking Ezinne away from him was unbearable. One night, as the moon hung high in the sky, casting its pale light over the village, King Obinze summoned Ekene to the palace. The summons was unexpected, but Ekene, being a man of honor, complied without hesitation. When he arrived at the palace, he was led to the king's private chambers, where Obinze sat upon his throne, his expression dark and foreboding. Ekene, the king began, his voice cold and menacing. I have heard of your interest in Ezinne. Ekene, sensing the king's anger, bowed respectfully. Yes, my king. I have come to know her well, and I wish to make her my wife. Obinze's eyes narrowed. Do you know of the curse that surrounds her? The danger that comes with being close to her? I have heard of the curse, Ekene replied calmly. But I do not believe in such things. Ezinne is a good woman, and I will not be swayed by superstitions. The king's anger simmered just beneath the surface. You are a fool if you think you can defy the will of the gods. Ezinne is mine, and I will not allow you to take her from me. Ekene stood tall, meeting the king's gaze without fear. Ezinne is not yours, my king. She is her own person, and she has the right to choose who she wishes to be with. If she chooses to be with me, then I will fight to protect that choice. Obinze's fury erupted. You dare challenge me? I could have you thrown in the dungeon or worse for your insolence. But Ekene remained steadfast. You may be the king, but even kings must answer to the will of the people. And the people of Uduma will not stand by while you take what is not yours. The tension in the room was palpable, the air thick with the weight of unspoken threats. But before Obinze could respond, a figure stepped into the room. It was Chikwe, the king's trusted advisor. "My king," Chikwe said, his voice calm but firm, "you must listen to reason. This path you are on will only lead to destruction. The gods have not lifted the curse because it is not meant to be lifted. Ezinne is not yours to claim." Obinze, still seething with anger, turned to his advisor. "You dare side with this outsider?" "I side with what is right," Chikwe replied, "and I urge you to do the same." The king, torn between his desire and the wisdom of his advisor, stood in silence for a long moment. Finally, he spoke, his voice filled with bitterness. "Leave my side, both of you. But know this, Ekene, if you pursue Ezinne, you will face the wrath of the crown." Ekene, undeterred, bowed once more. "I will do what I must, my king." As Ekene left the palace, his heart was heavy, yet his resolve remained unshaken. He knew that winning Ezinne's hand would not be easy, especially with the king's wrath hanging over him like a dark cloud. But his love for her was strong, and he was determined to fight for her no matter the cost. The following days were tense in the land of Udoma. Rumors spread quickly, and the villagers whispered about the confrontation between Ekene and the king. Some feared for Ekene's safety, while others admired his courage. But Ezinne, unaware of the full extent of what had transpired, continued to live her life, albeit with a growing sense of unease. One afternoon, as she was tending to the crops in her family's small farm, Ekene approached her. His face was set in a determined expression, but there was also softness in his eyes as he looked at her. "Ezinne," he began, his voice gentle yet firm, "there is something I need to tell you." She looked up from her work, sensing the gravity of his words. "What is it, Ekene?" He took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. "The king knows about us. He has made it clear that he would not allow us to be together. He claims that you are his, that the curse you carry is his to break." Ekene's eyes widened in shock. "The king? How does he know about us?" "Word traveled fast in the palace," Ekene replied, his tone bitter. "But that is not what matters. What matters is that I love you, Ezinne. I love you more than anything, and I am willing to fight for you. But I need to know if you feel the same." Ezinne's heart raced as she looked into Ekene's eyes. She had always admired his kindness, his strength, and his unwavering sense of justice. But now, faced with the prospect of defying the king himself, she realized just how deeply she cared for him. "I do," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotions. "I love you, Ekene, but what can we do? The king is powerful, and he will stop at nothing to get what he wants." Ekene took her hand in his grip reassuring. "We will find a way, Ezinne. We will leave this village if we must, but I will not let him take you from me." As they stood there, holding each other amidst the golden fields, the weight of their decision settled over them like a heavy blanket. They knew that their love would not be easily accepted, and that the path ahead would be fraught with danger. But they also knew that they could not live in fear, that they had to take a stand for what they believed in. Meanwhile, back at the palace, King Obinze's obsession with Ezinne grew even stronger. The thought of her being with another man was unbearable to him, and he found himself consumed by a dark jealousy that gnawed at his soul. He could not bear the idea of losing her, especially to someone like Ekene, who had dared to defy him. In his desperation, Obinze began to search for a way to lift the curse that protected Ezinne. He consulted with the most powerful sorcerers in the land, offering them riches beyond their wildest dreams if they could break the spell. But no matter how hard they tried, the curse remained unyielding. Frustrated and angry, the king became increasingly paranoid. He began to suspect that his own people were conspiring against him, that they were helping Ekene and Ezinne in their defiance. He ordered his guards to keep a close watch on the village, to report any signs of rebellion. He even went so far as to imprison some of the villagers, accusing them of aiding his enemies. The once peaceful village of Uduma was now gripped by fear. The king's tyranny had reached new heights, and the people began to wonder if there would ever be an end to his madness. But Ekene and Ezinne were not deterred. They knew that they had to act quickly if they were to have any chance of escaping the king's clutches. They made plans to leave the village under the cover of darkness to start a new life far away from the reach of King Obinze. The night of their escape was tense. Ekene had arranged for a trusted friend, a fellow merchant who traveled frequently, to meet them at the edge of the village with horses and supplies. As they made their way through the winding paths, their hearts pounding in their chests, each sound in the night making them jump. But just as they reached the outskirts of the village, they were confronted by a group of the king's guards, led by none other than Chikwe, the king's trusted advisor. "Halt!" Chikwe commanded, his voice cutting through the silence like a knife. "You cannot leave Ekene. The king has ordered that you return to the palace." Ezinne's heart sank as she saw the determined look in Chikwe's eyes. She knew that they were outnumbered, that there was no way they could fight their way out of this. But Ekene refused to back down. "I will not go back," he declared, his voice firm. "I love Ezinne, and I will not let the king take her from me." Chikwe sighed, a look of regret crossing his face. "You do not understand, Ekene. This is not just about the king's desires. The curse on Ezinne is real, and if you take her with you, it will bring ruin upon you both." Ezinne stepped forward, her voice trembling but determined. "The curse is a lie, Chikwe. My parents made it up to protect me from the king. There is no curse, and there never was." Chikwe's eyes widened in shock. "A lie? But the king..." "The king has been obsessed with me because of that lie," Ezinne continued, her voice growing stronger. "But I will not let it control my life any longer. I choose my own destiny, and I choose to be with Ekene." For a moment there was silence. The guards exchanged uncertain glances, unsure of what to do. Chikwe, torn between his loyalty to the king and the truth that had just been revealed, hesitated. Finally he spoke, his voice filled with resignation. "Go. Leave this place and never return. The king's wrath will be terrible if he discovers what you have done. But perhaps it is time for a new chapter in Uduma's history." Ekene and Ezinne exchanged a look of gratitude with Chikwe before mounting their horses. With a final glance at the village that had been their home, they spurred their horses into the night, disappearing into the darkness. The journey was long, but Ekene and Ezinne's love for each other gave them strength. They traveled through dense forests, across wide rivers, and over rugged mountains, always staying one step ahead of the king's reach. Eventually, they found a new home in a distant land, a place where they could live in peace and build a life together. The memory of King Obinze's tyranny faded into the past, replaced by the joy of their new life. Back in Uduma, the king's obsession with Ezinne slowly drove him to madness. Without the object of his desire, he became increasingly paranoid and erratic. His once great kingdom began to crumble as his people lost faith in him, and eventually he was overthrown by his own subjects, who had grown tired of his cruelty. As for Chikwe, he disappeared into the countryside, leaving behind the palace and the life he had known. He was never seen again, but some say that he lived out his days in peace, content with the knowledge that he had done what was right in the end. And so, the story of the cursed maiden and the king's obsession came to an end. A tale of love, defiance, and the power of truth over lies. Ezinne and Ekene's love had triumphed over the king's tyranny, and their legacy lived on. A reminder to all who heard it that even in the darkest of times, love can light the way to a brighter future.